Hello everyone, today we will be talking about human rights. First, let's take a look at the following short video and try to think about what are human rights.
Hello everyone, now we are going to play a game. Everyone please take out your papers, make paper balls and throw them into the bucket. If anyone could do that within 30 seconds, he or she will get a prize. Now, let's start the game.
That's so easy. A piece of cake. I have a lot of paper. Okay. Fine. I will try my best.
Oh no! I just have a piece of paper.
Too far! Away!
Student A and B get prizes in the end of the game. Thinking after the game. 1. Do you think it is a fair game? Why? 2. Why did A and B win? Are the ball pitching distance of the 4 students the same? Do they have same quantity of papers? Did they win because they are good at pitching? Did the others lose because of their poor pitching skills? The key reasons here could be their seats and their numbers of papers. In A's case, A sits the closest to the bucket, and it is a better location to pitch the ball to the goal, especially comparing to D, who sits the furthest. C has fewer papers than others in the beginning, which means that C has fewer opportunities to try. So, you might already realize what had happened in the game. In this case, if we want to make the game fair, how should we revise the game rule? First, the teacher should make sure that everyone has the same quantity of papers. Second, everyone should start their game from the same distance. According to the problem we had experienced, now we know that's why we have to introduce human rights here. A person inherent regardless of one's race, gender, and social class. Human rights means the most basic and indispensable right. They cannot be arbitrarily deprived or violated by neither the government nor the society. In order to respect individuals' dignity and the chances of pursuing a better life, the government should actively provide opportunity for individuals to express themselves and to achieve their goals. Human rights seems to be a very difficult and abstract concept. In fact, human rights are everywhere around us. For example, right of freedom. Human rights guarantee our freedom to do things and express ourselves at will, and to choose our belief by our own preference and so on. Right of property. This basic right guarantees us to own our private property without being arbitrarily deprived or violated by others. Right to work. We can choose our jobs and occupations by our own will, and the working condition and basic salary should be assured and secured. Right to privacy. The private life, family, residence, and communication of individuals should not be arbitrarily interfered by others. Alongside the above-mentioned rights on freedom, property, work, and privacy, there are also the right to political participation, the right to education, and many other rights that are closely related to our lives. In modern society, we have many guarantees for human rights, but did these guarantees exist from the very beginning? How did people develop the concept of human rights in the past? At the beginning of the development of human rights, only the right of a person who belongs to a certain family or social class was guaranteed. In 539 BC, after Cyrus the Great conquered the city of Babylon, he released all the slaves and sent them home. In addition, he declared that people has the right to choose their religious beliefs. The word he said was engraved on the pottery. It is called Cyrus Cylinder. The Cyrus Cylinder is considered the first human rights declaration in history. There are several important milestones in the history of human rights, such as Great Charter, Petition of Rights, United States Declaration of Independence, Declaration of the Right of Man and of the Citizen of France, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights promulgated by the United Nations. In 1215, the Feudal Rights Protection Agreement between the king and the feudal rule was called the Great Charter, which broke the balance of power between the government and the ruled, and gave the people new rights. It is including to no free man should be captured or imprisoned or desired or outlawed or exiled or in any way destroyed. Nor will we against him or stand against him, except by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. The king was also applicable by law. Based on above, it is not allowed to arrest, detain, and punish people at will, when a country has no legal basis and legal judgment. But did the Great Charter protect rights and interests of all people? No. In fact, the free people who are protected by the Charter at that time only accounted for less than half of the population. The others were serfs, and they did not apply to the Great Charter. However, the Great Charter still has extremely important significance for the development of human rights history. In 1628, Petition of Rights. As time came to 1628, under the checks and balance between the king and the parliament, Petition of Right protect the rights and freedom of the people. King Charles first abused his power of imprisonment and taxation. However, the parliament did not succumb. 1628. The parliament passed the following 4 points and adopted the right of petition. The petition sought recognition of 4 principles. 1. No taxation without the consent of Parliament. 2. No imprisonment without cause. 3. No quartering of soldiers in subject. 4. No martial law in peacetime. The above 4 points also shows the rise of parliamentary power and the weakening of kingship. And it is also an important milestone for the development of human rights.
Hey, wait a minute. Did you notice something? The ones who had highest power in the past were mostly the royal family or the emperor. But we are all human beings. Why did they have more power than us?
In the past, the Chinese emperor was called Tianzi, of the representation God's son. Besides, the ancient European Alexander was regarded as the incarnation of God, and the Egyptian pharaoh was the son of Amen. This all means that the power of monarch is granted by heaven and God, and others should obey the monarch's order. This is called divine right of kings. The monarch strengthened his supreme power and consolidated the legitimacy of rule through legend or divine will. However, with the signing of the Great Charter, petition of rights, and the outbreak of glorious revolutions. This set of monarchical power has gradually been rejected by people. Locke put forward the concept of natural human rights in political theory. He advocated that life, health, liberty, or possessions are inalienable human rights. First, Locke advocated that government is credited to provide protection for the property rights of individuals. Property includes everyone's own right to life, health, liberty, or possessions. Locke believes that all people are equal and independent in the natural state, and no one has the right to violate the life, health, liberty, or possessions of others. When the government betrays the people, the revolution is not only a right but also an obligation. The possession of human rights had a great influence on America's Declaration of Independence and Declaration of the Rights of Man and of Citizen. After the World War II, due to the heavy casualties, people still have shadows in their heart, so they organized the United Nations. The United Nations set a common standard on human rights with the adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. It was also the first document setting 30 human rights. In Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in a spirit of brotherhood. In Article 2, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, no self-government, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. To sum up, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights focuses on humans' basic rights, and there are many regulations and guarantees for political rights, economic, society, and culture. Many of rights are incorporated into the constitutional provision of many democratic countries. Following the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UN adopted the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, called ICCPR, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, called ICESCR, to effectively implement human rights protection in 1966, which are the two conventions we often hear. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and these two international human rights conventions are defined as International Bill of Human Rights by the UN, which is the most important human rights code in the world and the most fundamental source for law for the human rights protection system. The content is to clarify the basic human right, urges countries to actively implement and develop it into an international covenant law. What International Bill of Human Rights purpose is to promote people's human rights in all aspects of service, political, economic, social, and culture, enjoy the same protection. After the International Bill of Human Rights, the UN concluded a number of international human rights conventions, including race, women, torture and other inhuman punishment, children, migrant workers, people with disability, forced disappearance. In short, the content of international human rights protection has expanded from the three major rights of life, freedom, and poverty to a macro human rights that include citizens' right to freedom, social rights, equality, and various collective rights. Each of the 9 core human rights conventions has established a committee of independent experts to oversee the implementation of various countries.
Of the 9 core conventions, which one do you think is the most important and urgently needs protection? And what other rights do you think should be protected?
Everyone may have different answers. You can think about them in your heart. I would like to invite all of you to think about the question. Does Taiwan have any relevant laws in the 9 core human rights conventions of the United Nations? If so, which one or ones are guaranteed?
The first question we need to clarify is, does Taiwan have a truly human rights protection established by the UN? The answer is no. We are not a member of the UN. Because of our special international status, we cannot sign the UN Charter. So, do we have any relevant human rights guarantees? In fact, since the legislative yuan passed the implementation law of the ICCPR and ICESCR in 2009, the human rights protection has provisions of the 5 core human rights conventions, which has been regularized through implementation law model legislated by legislative yuan, and it also established a local report review similar to the UN committee system.
By the way, when the Republic of China was a member of the UN, we had signed ICERD, and which should have become a legal document binding on our country. In fact, it was not valued at that time. There are 5 core human rights tracked in Taiwan's law, according to basic human rights, women, children, and people with disabilities. About the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which called CEDAW, is aimed at the elimination of all forms of sex and gender-based discrimination against women. Its goal is the recognition and achievement of the de jure and de facto equality of women and men, which is to be achieved by a policy of elimination of all forms of discrimination against women incorporating all appropriate legislative and pragmatic measures. CEDAW in Taiwan, Domestic Violence Prevention Act. The purpose is to prevent gender violence. Act of Gender Equality in Employment. The purpose is to guarantee the two performance in the right to work to achieve equal pay for equal work. Gender Equity Education Act. The purpose is to eliminate gender discrimination by education to promote gender equality, such as stipulated that schools should set out a gender equality education committee or implement gender equality education lessons. They are the implementation of CRDW. The Convention on the Rights of Children. Why do we need to protect children especially?
Children may be ignored by the society because of their young age or lack of life experience, so they need protection by law. In CRC Article 1, for the purpose of the present convention, a child means every human being below the age of 18 years unless under the law applicable to child. Majority is attained earlier. In CRC Article 222, state parties should take all appropriate measures to ensure that the child is protected against all forms of discrimination or punishment on the basis of status, activity, expressed opinions, or beliefs of the child's parents, legal guardians, or family members.
There are 4 core principles of convention are: first, non-discrimination; second, devotion to the best interest of child; third, the right to life, survival, and development; fourth, respect for the views of the children. It's hoped that children will not be subject to violence, discrimination, and participate in affairs as they grow up, so that every child has the opportunity to develop their potential and use this experience as preparation for future life. Children in Taiwan enjoy the right to basic education and the Protection of Children and Youth Welfare and Rights Act. It's fundamental to protect them on basic welfare rights, survival, work, and so on. Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, called CRPD. CRPD purposed the present convention to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities and to promote respect for their inherent dignity. Taiwan Association for Disability Rights promotes the legislation you want to enact Physically and Mentally Disabled Citizen Protection Act to protect their rights. As for the remaining conventions, the Committee of National Reports recommends that the government should take regulations of other core of human rights as an important goal of promoting human rights protection. In summary, which rights do you think are urgently needed by Taiwan to be guaranteed by legislation? Okay, after talking about the development of human rights, let's go back to the short video in the beginning of the lesson. How can we make it fair to all students? Try to think about it.
Hello everyone, now we are going to play a game. Everyone please take out your papers. Make paper rolls and throw them into the bucket.
In the following lessons, we will introduce the issue of human rights in economic, young political rights, technological privacy, and culture. This is the end of this lesson. Thank you for your participation. See you next time. Bye bye.